Okay, we're stuck on the G again.
I say that we are
says
live. Up
meeting
top.
is now streaming live. Are we good?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the link right now into
Cool.
chat. So go ahead and put that up, Joshua.
No image this time.
What?
No image.
Last time we had it with an image, and I think we should just have it with the link itself will produce an image, but the image will be the actual.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Except Instagram requires an image on who.
Instagram put an image here.
So you'll have to do Instagram separately, Joshua.
I'm on Instagram right now. I can do it because
Okay.
links don't work in Instagram comments. So
Okay.
Go for it. I posted it just now on all the other platforms, so we should be live.
Okay.
Cool.
Are we ready?
Did we lose Merrick?
Yeah, we did. All right. Well, we're a little past 6:30 right now. We've got another staffer jumping on in a second. But again, my name is Albert Lee. I'm running to represent the people of the 3rd District of Oregon to Congress. I'm running because I believe that democracy requires choice, something we haven't had in over a generation. We face a series of crises here that have been allowed to fester and grow, and we need bold action now, not just inspirational and aspirational words. And I'm running because I believe in the basic tenets of the Democratic Party when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's beyond time that we uplift some new voices from some other backgrounds, from some other lived experiences to represent us here in the most diverse district of our state. Now, above all of that, I think it's time that we end this oligarchy, this rule by elite multimillionaire career politicians ruling over us, and replacing them with citizen representatives who know the struggle, who won't take corporate contributions, and who truly represent and fight for the people. Now, today I'm joined with some of the campaign crew here, and this is our second virtual town hall. We're trying to get this format set up in a way that is going to work. I'm not sure how it's coming up on YouTube because I think I put it on Brady Bunch style where we're all in gallery, but I still see it as myself. What do you guys see?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be just the speaker view. That's what I'm seeing right now.
Okay, let me see if I can switch it over to the gallery view and see if that comes up on what we've got a 45-second delay or so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll see if this actually works out. Again, thank you all for your patience as we navigate this virtual town hall setup. We're going to be trying out a couple of different formats here. This is the second time we're doing it on YouTube. We're going to look at trying to do it so that we are on actual live on the social media sites, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. But that may take us a couple of iterations. But it looks like it did come up on gallery view. Do you see it now on YouTube?
Yeah, it looks like the old Brady Bunch. So
okay, good. So say hello, everyone.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm part of the Albert Lee campaign. I work for the marketing and social media, and I'm the kind of lead graphic designer.
With all of this right here in the background. Fire away.
Noah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Noah. I'm the campaign strategist here in the Albert Lee 2020 campaign. I do a lot of outreach to organizations, podcasts, other candidates, things like that. Happy to be here with y'all today.
Hello, I am Joshua. I am the volunteer coordinator for Albert's campaign, and this is an exciting new world we're in. I'm glad everybody was able to come out and join us.
Hi, I'm Dory. I worked for this campaign through Portland State's political department, and I'm just happy to be here.
All right.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Smith here. I'm also part of the campaign as a staffer, so looking to make a change.
Woohoo! Thank you all for being on. So why don't we just go ahead and cut to the chase? I mean, we're still in the COVID crisis. We've got a president that doesn't know which direction to go. He wants us to all start working by Easter, and I guess all congregate at the churches so that we can infect each other. What do you think about that?
I think that's kind of disgusting because you're really putting, I mean, the economy, and not just the economy for the people, but mostly for the corporations in front of actual human lives. That's the kind of decision that's going to lead to actual human deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's putting capitalistic corporate profits over human individuality, and it's not recognizing the inherent value of human life.
Well, here's the thing. We over the last 2 weeks saw the federal government inject Wall Street with $6 trillion. That's 6,000 billion dollars. That's 6,000 million dollars. That's a lot of money. That with that amount of money, the issues that we've been talking about, Medicare for all, getting rid of school debt, free college for all, free public education for all, quite frankly, these things could have been materialized with that $6 trillion. We could have rebuilt our infrastructure and have a high-speed rail system across this country. A lot of the things that we talk about from the progressive side with $6 trillion, the things that our opponents have been saying, well, how are you going to pay for it? But when it comes to defending and shoring up the profits for the 1%, or to make sure that they don't lose their shirts, we see the government act by fiat without even just making a decision and being able to inject $6 trillion out of thin air. But when it comes to helping the people, we go through this sort of gymnastics to try to figure out whether it's worth it to help the people. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's the thing. In the first injection, it was $1.5 trillion, which happens to be roughly exactly the student loan debt. And if you think that, giving the richest people already another $1.5 trillion is going to help the economy, what do you think is going to happen if, people like myself who are dealing with student loans, I believe you're still dealing with student loans yourself, aren't you?
Yep.
I think actually most people in this chat either are or are about to be. If you don't think that that's going to help the economy way more, allowing us to, buy cars, buy houses, start our own businesses, I don't know what else you could do with the economy. I mean, if you have especially conservatives talking about how small businesses are the backbones of society, and then not even giving people the opportunity to start their own small businesses. Watching that exact amount of money roll in for these Wall Street investors was first of all really disgusting for me to watch, but also really validating for all the people that I've been talking to, saying, hey, we can afford this. I know it sounds crazy, like this unimaginable number, 1.5 trillion, but it can be done, and it would be a tremendous boon for the economy if we could. All these people who I've tried to explain this to, say that's not even a real amount of money, we can't afford that, and then watching it appear out of thin air for other people is also really validating.
Well, time and time again, I mean, we see the federal government bail out the auto industry. We bail out the investment bankers, which is legalized gambling. Whenever it is about the corporations, we seem to be more than willing to bail out these folks. But whenever it comes to actually bailing out the people, we have a problem with that. This is the kind of thing that we're fighting against. And I got to tell you that this is a demonstration of modern monetary policy, modern monetary theory, MMT. We just pulled $6 trillion out of thin air. We did that when we gave a tax break to the wealthy under the Trump administration. We did that when we spent $7 trillion on endless war. And basically what we've done is we've converted the resources of the federal government into the profit of the few in all of those situations. It's time that we had a government that works for the rest of us and not just those at the very top. And that's one of the reasons why I'm fighting for this. That's one of the reasons why I'm running for office, is because I think it's time that we end this oligarchy of elite career multimillionaire politicians ruling over us and replacing them with citizen representatives who know the struggle, who won't take corporate contributions, and who will truly represent and fight for the people. And what I mean by that is, on both sides of the aisle, we have millionaires, we have 1%ers who take a lot of corporate contributions. One of the things I wanted to point out is our incumbent right now, 10 to 1, has outraised our campaign 10 to 1. But if you take out the 65% that he got from corporations, and if you take out the money that he got from PACs, we've actually raised the same amount of money. This is an exact example of why we need publicly financed campaigns. It is an exact reason why, if we want to diversify our representation and bring in new sets of ideas from people with other lived experiences with different perspectives, we need to have publicly financed campaigns. We need to do this now. And I got to tell you, it's been a struggle for us raising the funds here because we are 100% powered by the people. So if you are looking to support a grassroots campaign, one that pledges never to take corporate contributions and truly be a representative of the people, I invite you to go to albertlee2020.com and chip in a few bucks.
All right, we have some questions here on Instagram. Number one is Trio Business Talk, a podcast about marijuana. He says that a lot of minority neighborhoods are being heavily policed because of the war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with this? And what's your take? What would you do to stop this if you don't?
Well, no, I mean, you can take a look at the example here in the 3rd district. There's a significant difference when you're looking at how the police patrol, say, Southwest or inner Northwest Portland versus the far east side of our district. When you get into the numbers, when you get into Gresham and in Troutdale and the like, one of the things you'll notice is you'll see a lot more squad cars. You'll see a lot more of those military tactical type vehicles out and about. They used to call them the gang task force or whatever. I think they call them something else now, but it's the same thing. And effectively what you have is a police state in those areas where we have poorer folks, where we have more marginalized folks, where we have more black and brown folks. And you don't see that same kind of militarism in the wealthier zip codes. And that's where you get a difference of opinion when it comes to the police. I mean, if you only see the police and you get to wave and see them once in a blue moon versus having them scowling at you every day as they're driving by multiple times, looking at you as if you're a criminal, that is the kind of difference of perspective. I think that generally speaking, when we look at the system that we have right now, when it comes to policing and when it comes to criminal justice reform, our criminal justice system, it is a continuation of the structural racism that we've had since the time of slavery and beyond. We need to break through all of that. First of all, what we need to do is we need to pull away all of that military hardware from the police departments. We need to then also take away some of that funding that we give to the police departments and shift it over to social work. Because quite honestly, what we've done right now is we've continued to erode our social safety nets. We continue to erode the services necessary for people that are really troubled and taxed. And what we need to do is we need to try to take care of them with the right tools. Now, the police, that's the hammer. And if you're a hammer, all you see are nails. We need to get some of that funding to social workers, to folks that are going to be in the front lines to help people that have drug dependencies, that have mental health issues. And then again, one of the things I talked about the last time we were on was that in order to take care of our houseless community, what we need to do is we need to have a combination of a housing first project mated to a universal health care, single payer Medicare for all system. Thanks for that question.
And then the Instagram account Progressives for Congress says that they are a Parkland, Florida resident. It asks, what will you do to end gun violence in this country?
Yes. Okay. So I want to state, first of all, that I'm a gun owner. I am a responsible gun owner. And I think that you do not want to curtail the rights we have under the Second Amendment, just like you don't want to curtail any of our individual rights. Now, that being said, there is plenty that we can do in order to mitigate the violence and hopefully to stop that. One of the things the first thing that we need to do is we need to ensure that we keep guns out of the hands of folks that shouldn't have them. And the way you do that is through background checks, right? Having a universal background check, right? We have got the gun show loophole. We got all these different loopholes that really allow folks that shouldn't have firearms to possess them. Now, the second thing we need to do is we need to take a look at creating a strict products liability on the manufacturers. Right now, when we have violence that is made with their products, they're not held liable. I believe that we need to have a strict products liability for all manufacturers of weapons, firearms, and as well as ammunition. In addition to that, I think that we should require all firearms owners and users to go through safety training. We need to have regular safety training, just like you have when you're driving those $3,000 weapons of mass destruction, those cars, right? You have to go through training. You have to get licensed. I think you need to do the same thing when it comes to firearms. And in addition to that, I think that private owners of firearms ought to have liability insurance, so that in the unforeseen or if we have situations where these things kind of happen, that they too are held responsible. When I talk about responsible gun owners, whenever you go to a gun range, the first thing you see is the rules, and there are very strict rules at every gun range. And if you violate those rules, you're immediately cast out. So, when it comes to firearms, we just need to promote safety. We need to make sure that we have responsible gun users, and we also need to hold folks liable, both the manufacturers and the owners of those firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up around guns with guns, and I'm still a supporter of a person's right to own guns. And I think that the main difference, or the main thing, is that even I think conservatives agree with a lot of the things that we're saying, as if you say it the right way.
Right.
Somewhere between like 85 to 95% of people in America agree that we should have universal background checks, yet somehow every Republican in Congress falls into that last 5 to 10%. And that's
well, that again, it goes back to the money in politics, right?
Exactly. It's the NRA and other organizations who fund these people. We can sit here and talk about what the right thing to do with guns is either way, but it doesn't matter unless we get the money out of politics to allow us to actually make the changes that we all know are the correct changes. And I would bet, last 5 to 10% are only, in that last 5 to 10% because of propaganda straight from the NRA or through the NRA to, Republicans in Congress, and then onward to Fox News and such. There's no reason why we should still have this other than the money in politics.
Right. I have to agree with you 100% on that. And you kind of hit a nail on the head right there also when it came to people and how they're persuaded. I mean, we have right now a president who came out with some bogus information about malaria medications to be used to prevent you from securing the COVID-19 virus. And we've had people in Nigeria as well as in our own country die from taking those drugs. That is the kind of irresponsibility that we need to stop. When we look at folks that are getting paid by the NRA and a variety of other organizations, they're spreading misinformation when it comes to the way that we need to be responsible about firearms. And I think, like you said, the vast majority of Americans want to have safety. They want to make sure that firearms aren't in the hands of the wrong people.
And I think I want to tie 2 points together. Firearms, they really, your use for firearms really breaks down into one or two different reasons. You want to use it for hunting, for providing food, or you want to use it because you're a hobbyist and shooting guns is fun.
Or the third option is self-defense.
Self-defense, yes. But guns tend to escalate situations and make situations worse. But either way. So a responsible society does not need guns flooding throughout the street. And this further escalates a lot of our tension with the police community. without checks and balances on who's actually able to get a gun, making sure that that the citizenry responsibly owns their guns and has liability insurance, so that we have these checks in place to protect ourselves. We wind up in a situation where cops, every corner that they turn, every bad guy that they want to interact with, the threat is looming that that person is armed, because everybody in this country has a gun. If we if we responsibly manage the way that we own these weapons that are designed to kill things, specifically people, then we can address a lot of the issues with police brutality. We can address a lot of the unnecessary mass shootings in schools and in theaters and in public community gatherings throughout this country. It is.
Oh, I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Joshua. I think that police brutality is not connected to the possession of firearms, because if it were so, we would see an equal amount of police brutality across socioeconomic background as well as race. And what we do see is that when it comes to police brutality, it is more heavily impacted on those that are Black and brown versus white folks. And a good case in point is Jeremy Christian. He was armed with a knife, and he was at that time taken into custody without harm, whereas we had Moose Hayes and a variety of other Black individuals, brown individuals here in this district be killed for lesser. So I'll disagree with you on that. I'm sorry, I had to stop you there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it only does further to escalate the amount of brutality that the police officers are able to dish out upon the community, and through the racial lens and structuring that we have in our community. It severely disproportionately impacts the African American community.
Well, I think you kind of
one of my examples in Florida. I don't remember the gentleman's name. He was a security guard, unarmed security officer in a bar. A gunman was in the bar. Gunman pulls out his weapon. Security guard disarms the gunman and restrains him until police arrive. Police arrive within a couple of seconds. They shoot the African American security guard who had restrained the gunman, and for no reason other than they walked in and saw a Black guy and decided that he was dangerous and they were going to murder him that day. Our police, we need to train them much better and disarm the police. And I think if we also tie that to responsibly managing our own weapons in the community, both of these issues tie in with each other.
Well, I think it ties in kind of as a scapegoat, really. It's an excuse, I think what Albert was getting at was that, police brutality is going to be police brutality, and it's going to be a socioeconomic, situation regardless. And just the being able to throw, oh, he might have had, he might have been armed as an excuse is all that it is. It really has nothing to do with proper gun laws or safety. Do we have another question from Instagram, Noah?
Yeah, the same one, Progressives for Congress, asked, Albert, will you co-sponsor Medicare for All?
That's not a question. 100%. I mean, right now, what we're looking at is a global pandemic that is only highlighting the flaws of our current system. Our current employer-based private health insurance system is riddled with holes. I mean, we're in a situation right now where folks are losing their jobs. And when they lose their jobs, they lose their health insurance. Having your health insurance tied to employment is absolutely the worst thing that could happen right now. This right here, right now, is a good point to hit the reset button and to go ahead and just implement single payer Medicare for all right now. I mean, if we had the right leader in the White House right now, if we had the right leaders in Congress right now, we surely would have done that. Again, we've had a federal government that has spent in the last 2 weeks $6 trillion, when just a month ago they were quibbling about, what was it, $27 trillion for Medicare. or 27, was it 27, was it 27 trillion over the course of 20 years?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yet at the drop of a hat, we can drop $6 trillion just like that for a small subset of our population. Again, we need to have a federal government that's going to work for all of us and not just those at the very top. And one of the ways that we can do that is to provide a universal healthcare system. And a universal healthcare system is exactly what is needed for this pandemic, because if we don't make sure that everyone is taken care of, we will not eradicate this pandemic. Case in point, in South Korea, where they have a single payer Medicare for all system, they have gone beyond flattening the curve, and they're on the way to recovery at this point through the discipline of having social distancing, doing the proper testing. They're doing more testing per day than we can muster here in the greatest nation in the world.
And the richest nation.
The richest nation in the world, as they say. So I think that, yes, 100% we need to have a single payer Medicare for all system. And this right here is the call to that action, the call to that need, the absolute example of why.
Well, let me ask you, what do you say when people say, how do we pay for it?
Again, the same answer with the $6 trillion that just materialized. We use modern monetary theory. The United States is an economic and currency sovereign. It means that we produce our own money. It is backed on the faith of the people. When it comes to modern monetary theory, whenever you are putting out, and it's effectively deficit spending, when you're putting out that money, that is directly tied to a surplus in the private economy. So how do we pay for it is we do the deficit spending, we pay for it. It produces the positive externalities necessary to get our economy moving, and we move forward from there. It's simple as that. We have used and employed modern monetary theory when it comes to providing the tax breaks for the wealthy, spending $7 trillion on endless war. We never question how we're going to pay for it whenever it benefits those at the very top. Yet somehow, every single time when we talk about doing something for the good of all of the people, somehow there's a problem with that. And we need to get the right folks into our government in order to change that narrative, in order to make sure that we do the right thing for the people.
So I hear that, and when I argue with people, they always argue back, but why shouldn't we also have a private insurance option?
Yeah, you can have your private insurance option when it comes to supplemental insurance. I mean, I think that when you're talking about slippery slope, but first of all, folks don't understand the concept of what insurance is. Insurance is socialism. It is taking risk and spreading it across the largest group possible. And I'll give you a case in point. So when Pete Buttigieg used to talk about Medicare for those who wanted it, let's run that whole scenario down and we can talk about that. So if we had a Medicare for those who wanted it, what would happen would be the private health insurance would cherry pick all of the super healthy people, right? Because that's how you increase your profits, because you're not spending money on sick people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you cherry pick all the healthy people, the private health insurance companies do that. So that leaves all of the sick, all of the poor, all of the old, all the people who really need the coverage. And you concentrate the risk instead of spreading the risk out. You concentrate that risk into the public option. What happens then is that public option collapses on its own because you don't have the balance of healthy people to cover or spread that risk. So after the collapse, one of two options really happens. Either all of those sick people get absorbed into the private health insurance regime again, except what the private health insurance would do in order to make sure that they shore up their profits is they lower the coverage for those folks and they increase the deductibles, right? So you get less coverage for more money. So effectively, you don't get the same coverage. The second thing that could happen would be we could return to the regime that we had before the Affordable Care Act, which was that some people simply didn't get insurance. Neither one of those options is good. And ultimately, when you look at the private health insurance, it is just a parasitic level carving up profit, which should be going to care for folks. So if you have a single payer universal healthcare system, that should cover everybody. It would spread the wealth to the furthest extent because you would have one universe of folks to cover the risk. Now, if you want to have some special la-di-da insurance, yeah, you can buy that on top of that. But private insurance industry as we know it would go away with a single payer Medicare for all system. Sure, there might be a few remaining insurers for, specialty or a luxury services, but by providing the standard universal healthcare, we're caring for all the folks.
Well, I see a problem with this as well. When we have people lose their jobs where their insurance is tied to their job, and they go to the state insurance, and now it's taxpayers footing the bill when corporations and large corporations are still failing to pay their fair share in taxes.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So M4A is clearly a better system, but why is it, do you think, that we don't have it yet when every other country does?
Well, it's the same answer for everything. Money in politics. We've got health insurance companies that spend millions of dollars on politicians on both sides of the aisle. In fact, our incumbent has taken thousands and thousands of dollars from health insurance companies. So on paper, he says he's for Medicare for all, but he's not really pushing that hard for it. I remember 2 years ago, I went to his town hall on healthcare. It was at the Unitarian Church downtown. And back then I was drinking the Kool-Aid that everybody else is, that said that, he was the super progressive champion that we needed. I went there and I had my hindsight is 2020 Bernie t-shirt on. In fact, you can see the video on C-SPAN if you really, really want to. And I was there and I was really expecting to hear the incumbent talk about how we were going to push forward Medicare for all. And what he said was Canada Care, Medicare for some, Medicare for all, whatever you want to call it. We're going to have something like that maybe in 20 years. And I started scratching my head and I was like, well, 20 years? What is he talking about? Why shouldn't we put pushing this now? And I left befuddled. And then I went home and I went to my two favorite websites, Open Secrets and Follow the Money. And therein lie, I saw all the funds that he was taking from a variety of different corporations, including the health insurance companies. And I said, well, therein lies your answer. And so I say to you, Sam, therein lies your answer. Why don't we have a universal single payer Medicare for all system? Because first of all, our private health insurance companies, they raise billions in profits, and they trickle some of that back to the politicians to keep them from losing that gravy train. Single payer Medicare for all means no more Aetna, no more Blue Cross Blue Shield, no more Kaiser Permanente. And there are plenty of folks that make a lot of money off of those. Now, granted, I know that there are a lot of folks that are afraid. There are a lot of folks that work in the private health insurance industry, and I feel for them and I understand that. But just like we don't have elevator operators anymore, we shouldn't have folks that are working in a private health insurance company that are profiting on sick and dying people. It shouldn't be that your job determines whether you have insurance or not. It shouldn't be that some of us die from things that are curable while others are able to get by. And especially during this time of crisis where so many people are losing their jobs, this is a wake-up call to say, hey, the system that we have is broken. The system that we have is not working for all of us.
And I think to build off of an earlier point that you were making, we have these private insurance companies that are these immoral entities that their profit motive is designed by limiting treatment options and trying to give as little care and enabling the most amount of death as possible among the American population. But the workers inside those industries are not these evil automatons. They're regular, American workers trying to work a job. So when we talk about these big proposals like Medicare for all and dismantling the entire private insurance industry, we also talk about a just transition for these workers, because yes, we need to eliminate these massive bureaucratic systems that just keep us sick. but we can't leave all of these workers in these industries behind. And we need to build that into the legislation and get appropriate job training for them and to shift them into other industries and other sectors of the economy.
And I think you're right. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that as well. And when it comes to all these big changes that we need to make sure not to leave people behind. When it comes to the Green New Deal, when it comes to overturning our current system. Look, there are a lot of different systems that need to be flipped and broken and reformed. And in that, we need to ensure that we're taking care of folks and not leaving anybody behind.
So when I see this argument made, I always hear, but isn't that socialism? So I think there's a lot of discussion on what socialism is, especially democratic socialism. And I think that there's kind of a different definition in everyone's mind, to the point where the word kind of means nothing. And you've run this campaign as a democratic socialist campaign. What do you see as the main difference between democratic socialism and what we have in America today?
Yeah, so what we have in America today is capitalism. It is a system that chews up workers, that doesn't care about the people, to the point that we have a president that wants to push us all back out into the world to mix it up so that we can save the economy, so that those on the top can continue to make profits from their stocks. When we talk about democratic socialism, what we're really talking about is mating an economic democracy to our alleged political democracy that we have today. So a prime example of that would be having workers, frontline workers, be on the boards of these companies that are making obscene amounts of money, and that are paying their CEOs obscene amount of money. So for instance, if we had workers on, say, McDonald's board, where a good 78% of the folks that work at McDonald's don't have healthcare, that don't have sick pay. If we got some workers on that, I think that maybe those kind of things would change. At the same time, maybe the CEO of McDonald's wouldn't make as much in a day as most of the workers make on average in a year. Having that economic democracy, having that voice, and having that control within would help to curb the ridiculous wealth gap that we have, where we have 3 people owning as much as the bottom half of Americans. That high concentration of wealth in the hands of the very few, instead of sharing and redistributing and sharing that wealth across. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what we have right now is peak capitalism. It is at its peak. It is at a point where it is at the point of collapse. We need to seriously address the issues that we have today. We have a climate emergency where we are literally destroying the habitability of our planet and threatening the existence, our own existence on this planet, so that somebody can make a buck. The system that we have is built on overproduction, overconsumption, built-in obsolescence. It is one of the reasons why we have this corona pandemic, is because we have a system that has people traveling all over the globe, searching for the lowest and the cheapest amount of labor possible, where we have the lowest amount of human rights, where we have the lowest amount of worker rights, and then transferring and shipping products around the world. Well, this virus kind of piggybacked off of that. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to democratic socialism, what we're talking about is a reimagining of how we can take care of all of us, instead of having a small set of winners and the rest of us losers.
And while we're on the topic of differentiation, Josh from YouTube asked, can you name 3 ways that you clearly separate yourself from your opponent?
Yeah. First of all, I'll start off with lip service progressivism. We have an incumbent who's been in office for 24 years. Strike that. He's been in office for 48 years. He's been in office for 48 years. He's been in this particular office for 24 years. And during that time, he's told us a lot about a lot of different progressive things. So he is our champion who wants to overturn Citizens United, who wants to have publicly financed campaigns so that we can diversify our leadership, yet at the same time has taken in 65% of his contributions from corporations. And when you tack on PACs, it's up to 90%. Meanwhile, I am your candidate who wants to overturn Citizens United, who wants to have publicly financed campaigns, and who's actually walking the walk that I talk. So 100% of my contributions have come from the people, not corporations. And same when it comes to things like, our climate emergency. We have an incumbent who claims to have written the Green New Deal, yet at the same time holds millions of dollars in fossil fuel stocks. This is lip service progressivism. This is telling the people what they want to hear and doing the exact opposite. This is quintessentially what a politician is. In contrast, I am a citizen representative who has a 6-year-old daughter who fervently needs a planet to live on, who needs a stable country and government to live in, and who needs a life worth living. I am following the tenets and what I believe in. I am saying exactly what I'm saying, and I'm doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm walking the walk that I talk. We have a progressive in name incumbent who is our social justice champion, who says that he's fighting for the rights of all of us. Yet, he was the one that voted for the Defense of Marriage Act. He is the one who voted for Sesta Fosta. These are things that I wouldn't do. These are the kind of things that differentiate me from our opponent. The incumbent tells you what you want to hear, but then if you bother to stick around to actually find out what he's doing, he's not really following up on all of those things. He is our Medicare for All champion who continues to take funds from health insurance companies and from health professionals. Again, I am the one that's standing up for a single payer Medicare for all system. Case in point, 2016, our incumbent also countermanded the will of the people by voting and employing his superdelegate vote to vote for Hillary Clinton, despite having our entire district vote overwhelmingly for Bernie Sanders. Again, there are so many different points when it comes to that. Now, I don't want to just go ahead and talk to you about those things. I'll talk to you about some other things that differentiate me from the opponent. So the incumbent, when he first walked into the halls of Congress 24 years ago in 1996, during the height of Seinfeld, during that time, he had a net worth somewhere around $500,000. He had been a public servant for 20 some years already. Today, his net worth is somewhere between 10 and $16 million, depending on which accounting you look at. But that's a 20-fold increase in the value of his net worth. Whereas for the rest of our district, the net worth of the average person in our district has remained relatively flat. And if you're coming from marginalized communities, your net worth is actually decreased. So 24 years of our incumbent being in office has been very good for our incumbent, but for the rest of us, it has not been. We face a series of crises, including a homelessness crisis that has gone from critical to super critical, the lack of affordable housing and living wages that places way too many of us in the struggling class, and a climate emergency that has only gotten lip service. I'm the real deal, and the incumbent isn't. That's it in a nutshell. Here's the thing. I don't see what he's going to do different in a 25th and a 26th year that he hasn't done in the first 24. So that is where I stand. I hope that you can make those comparisons and take a look. And I got to tell you, I come from a background and a perspective that's different than our 1%er incumbent. I come from the working class. I have served in the military. I have and worked my own business, and I've struggled, and I've faced a lot of challenges throughout my life. And I don't say that to ask for your pity. I say that to tell you that I understand the struggles that a lot of people face that our incumbent simply doesn't have the perspective of.
As a quick follow-up to that, Josh also asked, what is your average donation amount?
Thank you for that. Let me pull that up right now. Let me see. while I'm looking that up, you can go ahead and fire up on the next one.
Yeah, so Progressives for Congress also asked on Instagram, what is the top issue besides coronavirus that faces the world right now?
Give me 1 second here. Okay. So our average over the entire, oh wait, that's not right. Okay, so our average contribution over the entirety of this campaign has been $29.23 on ActBlue. We have had some small dollar donations outside of ActBlue as well, but that gives you a rough estimate of where we're at. Where was it? What was that other question now?
The other question on Instagram is, what is the top issue besides coronavirus that faces the world right now?
I think the top issue is our capitalist system. Quite frankly, it is a system that has reached peak capitalism. We have a wide wealth disparity, not only in this country, but with throughout the world. And, when you take a look at the leadership around the world, it's not just the United States that is led by the 1%. It's pretty much every single country. And if we are going to get a handle on this issue, we're going to have to start getting folks that are going to be champions of the people into power, champions of the people that are going to represent folks and start addressing this really huge economic crisis. Because again, we've reached peak capitalism. This is unsustainable. It is killing us when it comes to our climate emergency. It is killing us when it comes to the struggles of regular working class people throughout the world. And it is concentrating wealth into the hands of the very few beyond utility.
We have one more question on Instagram from the same account. Progressives for Congress says, what are the top issues besides coronavirus that the world is facing right now?
Where'd you go, Noah?
Yeah, we just
answered that.
Oh, sorry, I just got a call right in the middle of this. So
no worries.
Always tech issues.
Yeah, no, that's all good. One of the things I want to be mindful is we want to keep this under an hour so that we don't have to do any editing when we add this on to the deal. But I wanted to kind of just touch base and check in on you guys and see how you're doing with everything, and if there's anything in the news that has struck you or has tickled your fancy, or is something noteworthy that we can discuss.
I mean, just to be honest, just watching the numbers go up is really hard, because it's, you got on one hand, you've got infected, and on the other hand, you've got literal death toll. And I kind of feel like I'm watching like 9/11 happen every day,
Kind of in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and today we had our first teenager die in California. Which kind of dispels the myth that this does not affect the young.
The young people. Yeah, I've been trying to tell my friends that. And even those who do survive, there's a high chance that you end up with sustained lung conditions. So it'll be beyond the death toll, the casualties.
And that's actually a question that I have for you youngins is how's your network? I mean, are people taking this seriously, or are they still going out and about? You hear the anecdotes about the young just out there socializing and not really paying much attention to this.
I've got a friend right now who's actually, we don't know if he's got just the flu or what it is, but he's been running a fever, and he lives by himself up here. I think he's the only one in his family in this state. So
have you guys been checking in, virtually? Yeah.
I'm trying to keep in contact with him. I've got some friends who are taking it as seriously as I am, staying in. Some who are like, yeah, I mean, not gonna be too socially distanced myself, but it's kind of serious. And I'm like, you can't treat it like that.
Right. And I think that part of the problem we're facing is we don't have leadership at the very top that has unified and quite frankly, has been schizophrenic when it comes to the direction that they're going.
There's Joe.
We obviously need to have some clear leadership on the very top. I applaud some of the governors that have taken it upon themselves to move forward. I'm looking at you, Cuomo in New York, and others who are taking this seriously and trying to get folks to take this seriously. I know there was something else in the news today about a 42-year-old health professional that was found dead at home with a toddler or a 4-year-old, and you know, this is serious stuff. You know, I talked to one of my friends who is a cardiologist down in LA, and he's not on the front lines, but he's like, yeah, you know, the basics, you know, keep your social distance, wash your hands, stay home.
And in my friend network, I have a handful of different friends of mine, including my wife, who's immunocompromised. One of the worst case scenarios for one of my friends, she takes a medication that makes it impossible for her body to produce antibodies. And so like she's basically one of these cases that if she gets this, she's probably going to die. They're for people in you know, this community. If you already have lung problems, if you're older, if you have some type of compromising medical condition, you know, it's real and it's scary.
Both my roommates, they both work at hospitals, and one of them was told that he works in palliative care, that he's very likely going to contract the disease. So I had to move home. I had to go stay with my parents. I fear to be in that environment where he was told by, you know, his management that he's going to catch the disease, and there's not a whole lot they can do because we don't have enough masks and gloves to, you know, take the proper precautions to keep his health in check.
Yeah, this is super serious. You know, and I know that I don't know if any of you caught Bernie's live stream a little bit before this, but he talked about some of the things that they're looking at in this new package. And one of the things that they're trying to shore up, and one of the things that was being neglected, was the fact that our employee unemployment insurance was not built for this, not built for long-term unemployment. And we're in a situation right now where we're looking at folks that are going to be unemployed for a long time. So I know that one of the things that he talked about was that we would have a system where we kind of shore up and fortify the unemployment system, as well as providing some emergency income for folks. So hopefully we see those things happen, so that we can also continue to encourage folks to stay at home. You know, I know that there are a lot of businesses, especially service industry, restaurant folks, that have been unemployed for a while now, and I know that a lot of people are struggling. So we can only hope that we can get some sensible folks in office right now to do the right thing and provide the assistance to the people as needed, as opposed to bailing out corporations.
All right.
So with that downer, we need to leave it on a high note here. We've got to figure out a way to leave this on a high note. I know that we've got less than 2 months before the primary here in Oregon. One of the high notes that I can talk about is that we're going to have some special guests coming up in the near future, where we're going to try to meet up with some other candidates from around the country virtually. Around the horn, you guys have anything else to say, or something positive?
Yep, I'll throw it out. One of the things that we're looking at trying to do is to do events like this, where we do a virtual town hall, where we actually have people can join into a public link and ask questions on like a YouTube live. If you know any great resources or anything like that we might be able to take advantage of, you can send those resources my way. My email is joshua@albertlee2020.com. Because one of the main points of doing these is to interact with, you know, the constituents and the voters in the district, and to learn about the issues that matter to the people here. And so we do that by actually talking to you.
All right.
One of the things, oh, I was just going to say one of the things that I try to keep in mind is to, you know, even though the news and in a lot of ways your personal life is probably taken a huge downturn in the past few days, still try to enjoy this time, you know, especially if it's time that you get to spend at home with your family or with your loved ones that you don't normally get to spend. I know it's a dire situation, but that's also a privilege that you have for right now. So enjoy that time while you've got it.
Well said.
All right.
All right, let's end it here. And we will catch you on the next one. Have a good and safe night all. And we will end it here. Take care.
Bye.